So, um, Grandpa in 1985, the government had set up rules to assist with farms being able to be inherited to children. So they set up a program with like a tax haven where if you had put all of your farm into a living trust and had not redeeded anything for a minimum of 5 years, then when you pass, that land goes to your kids and it waives all inheritance tax. So when my elders, my uncles, my mom, whatever, when they inherit their land from grandma, they end up, getting completely paid for land, no taxes to be paid other than property taxes. Everybody faces that battle every year. But it is an unbelievable deal with a substantial amount of cash to be divided three ways. There's tobacco buyout money to be divided three ways. So my grandparents' hard work, saving, sacrifice, smart investing really set the family up nicely. Now you're not rich at that point. I think that's where some confusion come in with the family, but it's a heck of a bonus in life. Now, before grandmother or grandfather passes, my uncle runs a pallet company located on the farm. Grandpa retires from farming. They basically have the company there, and it uses all of the footprint of the farm for this pallet company. Grandpa had started the pallet company himself in the mid 70s. He would go around and get pallets, then were kind of a nuisance. He would go around and get them from farmers, get them from the fertilizer shops and all that other stuff, and his own. He'd have a bunch of pallets. In the winter, he would take his guys that he's trying to keep working year round. They would repair whatever pallets that they could. Grandpa would then go to manufacturing plants in Fayetteville, like Purolator or whatever, and sell these pallets, and then that allowed him to have the extra money to keep his best hands on the farm year round and keep them eating, the hands. So David's run this, and David's has turned this into a pretty substantial business. It goes from like an idea or whatever, or a part-timey thing in the winter, to at David's height he had 4 semi trucks, about 40 trailers, 48 53-foot trailers, flatbeds, big accounts. Was doing big money. That creates issues later, but so the reason I have to tell you that the pallet place is there because it plays into what goes wrong. Grandma passes, and we have to have the trust read. So the trust is a thick booklet with all of the black and white, every itemized detail that must happen. What everything a kid gets, how much money gets divided, all the rules and regulations of the estate to be divided to the heirs. My grandpa was a pretty smart guy. First sentence in the trust is, this trust is to divide everything owned by his legal name and his wife's legal name. The second line in that trust said, these are our wishes. They are to be distributed to each heir that we have chosen to get the amount. If any heir has any verbal, to get the exact phrase, verbal displeasure with our wishes, they forfeit their share of the trust, and it is divided evenly among non-verbally displeased members or whatever. So basically, if at any point in this process you said, I don't think this is fair, you get nothing. It goes to whoever has kept their mouth shut and agreed to go with the program. It's an impossible task to divide everything evenly. I think they did a pretty fair job dividing their stuff up. Money's easy, divide by 3, whoopee. But land and everything else, oh, this field's in a better location, or this field's close to done, it can be sold for more. They just fixed all that. This is what it is. Don't argue, we're done with this. So, over time, Grandma had some rental property and stuff, and not to get but so deep into the weeds, because this is a definitely deep in the weeds story. Eventually, the children are supposed to get what the parents have left them. The children are asking, when are we going to get it? Being the daughter and the two brothers. But one of the brothers, the smartest one business-wise, David, who ran the pallet company, he was appointed to be the trustee by Grandma and Grandpa long before they had passed. So David's running the show. And I got an uncle wanting his stuff. My mom's wanting her stuff, but my mom's disabled. So there's a whole bunch of mess that goes along with that. We basically just told Mom, just leave it in the trust. Let it pay whatever bills you got. There's some people have this belief that if I get land, if I put land in my name, I'm rich. You're not. You have to pay the property tax on it. You have to have income to pay the property tax. You're setting yourself up for even more tax stuff to deal with. So in her position, not having a job, fully disabled, just live your life. This will pay for anything you need. Everybody has wants, everybody has wishes. That creates its own arguments and everything, with my uncle being the trustee and my mother feeling that she should get her fair share. And to be fair, she was getting her fair share, but she's pretty argumentative about it. There's times she would want something like a brand new car, and I'd have to talk to her and say, what do you need a new car for, Mom? Well, I just want a new car. You're blind, you're amputated because she's diabetic, severe diabetic, and was missing limbs. You can't see, you're legally blind, you don't have a license. What can a new car get you? So that's the type of issues we're dealing with, and there's a lot of sister and brother pushing back on each other. My Uncle David was like a father to me. I'd go see him once a week, maybe drink a beer, talk about life. He was probably one of the closest men in my family members that I've ever been with, or closest to. Now I have a cousin, Jeremy, and he's like my brother. But at the time, David was my dude. So he says, Glenn, I got an issue. Your mom's, she's hawking on me all the time. I'm under all this stress. I'm trying to handle this estate, run my company. I need a buffer between me and her. I don't want to end up fighting. So, what do you need? He said, so I'm going to take and go off of this trust account to a subsidiary checking account. It'll be off of the trust, so they're linked together. And would agree to put X amount of dollars in there. If your mom needs anything, let her ask you for it. She listens to you more, and I know how I'm better at pushing back against Mom and trying to get her to reason up a little bit. Like, hey, we can't get a new car, but do you want a new wheelchair? Whatever. The art of the deal, as Trump puts it. So I have a checking account I'm in charge of. Whatever she needs, I get her. Life is moving on. We've got another uncle that's asking about when am I going to get my land, blah, blah, blah. And he keeps getting excuses. Oh, we had to get somebody to read the trust. We had to get somebody to do this. So the trust, there's a good detail here. Trust is a black and white written book. Should not be hard to have it written or read, legally read. Until we find out that the guy that wrote it defrauded some people on their dealings, and he got prosecuted, and now he's in penitentiary or the Fed spot somewhere in Virginia, and he's been disbarred. So now we can't have him come back in and reread it. When you take that part of the detail of the trust and take it to any other lawyer, they're scared to touch it, because they're scared if this guy defrauded somebody, he's written something in here that's going to catch me later. So there's a huge liability for any lawyer to read. So with that, the general thought process is everybody needs to do what's said in black and white and get along and get through this chapter of life. Keep getting excuses of why we can't have things, why this land can't be done, and some things to the whole family aren't quite adding up with the stories. Like, you should be able to deed Larry his land, it's free and clear, blah, blah, blah. But I don't pay a whole lot of attention to things other than taking care of Mom, because I live in Clayton, they're back in Cumberland County. I have a good distance buffer, and she just calls me as she needs things. Okay. So one day I realized that it's been like 2 months since I got a checking account statement. I go to the BB&T, I do business with them, I say hey, talk to the branch manager. Man, it's gonna sound really weird, but I haven't gotten a check statement off of this. Can you print me out the last 2 check statements? No problem, Glenn. Goes in there to the computer and he says, well, which account is it? And I say, well, I don't really know. I don't have a checkbook with me. He says, well, your name's on both because David did do that. He was put me as a signee, blah, 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 and the accounts are locked together. You can transfer money from the big to the little. This guy hands me a statements, last 2 months statements for both. Not to divulge the exact numbers, but the master account was a substantial amount of money, especially for my family. And so it's well into the 6 figures, almost 7 figures, and we're going to keep about 30 grand for mom and just keep it money cycled in there as she needs it. Her account is down to like $10,000, and it has almost as much as the master account does. So somehow there is $750,000 missing or unaccounted for. Let's say that. When I get these check statements in my hand, I start reading through the check statements, and it is unbelievable.